So, good afternoon, friends. Today, it's a pleasure for me to welcome Mr. Harsha Kadam. Harsha is the CEO and Managing Director, Schaeffler India, and President of the Industrial Business. He joined Schaeffler in 2018 as President Industrial Business, a role that he continues to hold today also. Prior to Schaeffler, Harsha was the CEO of AGI Glasspack, and before AGI, he was with SKF India till December 2016 as Director, Automotive Business. Harsha has held several key leadership positions in the organization across manufacturing and sales for over 20 years. Mr. Kadam has studied mechanical engineering at Bangalore University and later acquired further qualification in business management, specializing in marketing, finance, and HR. Harsha, pleasure to have you with us at the next edition of the VDMA CEO's Leadership Series. So welcome to this edition, Harsha. Um, Harsha, the first question, of course, is COVID has had a tremendous impact all over the world. It has impacted 188 countries. In fact, almost 13 million cases have been crossed, and India is also inching towards the 1 million mark very fast, or rather than inching, I think we should say now sprinting towards the 1 million mark fast. People call it the black swan of 2020 also, with the global economy staring, Harsha, at perhaps at a dip of something like 3 to 5%. Harsha, what I wanted to ask you is what has been the impact of COVID on Schaeffler globally as well as Schaeffler India?
Okay. First and foremost, thank you, Rajesh, for inviting me to this session. It's a pleasure, as always, to connect with and come back to events like this, which you and VDMA together do. It certainly is a privilege to be here. Thank you so much. And well, coming to the COVID, the question on COVID, what you asked, and how Schaeffler has been impacted globally. Yes, Schaeffler is no exception to the impact. Like any other organization, we have been impacted. Let me start by first talking about at India level, because that's more relevant for us here. And as you all know, with the lockdown that we had for the straight 52 days of productive days, which we lost due to the total lockdown. And that's almost 14% of your productive time in the entire year that we saw disappear. Not to add to that, the post-restart scenario, where a lot of restrictions were put by the authorities, and you were able to run your plants with 30% manpower resources. You could run only at certain time of the day. You were able to start and run only 12-hour shifts, and so on and so forth. And more so, the challenge got compounded by the fact that these are varying from state to state. The decision to manage the situation varies from state to state, and that is posing big challenges in supply chain processes, in the logistics movement. And of course, our customers are spread all across the country. So as you can see, we are all not on the same level now, when we want to run the business post restart. So this is definitely put a lot of challenges. So if I were to add the productivity loss because of this, kind of disturbed way of restarting, I would say close to about 20% to 25% productivity loss, which we believe is going to be there this year. And the same applies, I'm sure I hear the same numbers with many of our sister companies in many parts of the world as well. So, well, I started off on a note of talking what has been the adverse impact. Yes, there were many adverse challenges that we faced through, but I also would like to touch a little bit on what was the favorable impact. Any crisis always holds, it's like two faces of the coin, and this crisis, as any other, held very interesting challenges for us, And it also kind of brought the entire Schaeffler India team together, which hitherto, we are so busy trying to get and reach our targets and goals that you miss spending time in connecting with each other, getting closer with each other, and learning new ways of doing business. How to run your day-to-day work, and so the morale and motivation for me was one of the positive impacts which I saw because of the COVID. Normally, you would hear that people are frustrated and the pressures are very high. It is stressful. Yes, that was there, but what I did see within Schaeffler is that we also saw a very good improvement in the morale and motivation of the employees, fundamentally due to some of the steps and measures we took, particularly in the area of communication, in the area of engaging, and also in the area of positive and enabling leadership styles, which got demonstrated across the organization. Right. Coming to the impact of Schaeffler across the world, Western Europe has been a little different. Western Europe did not go in for total lockdowns like India went, not everywhere though. Even if they did, it was for a pretty short period of time. We did have situation where our customers stopped operations in Europe, and that did impact, obviously, the sales. What we see is also the demand is down post the restart situation. And the pickup seems to be much slower in different parts of the world. If I were to take a case, an example, Schaeffler China, in spite of the COVID, Schaeffler China operations bounced back pretty strongly. Right. And they are back to their normal levels of production. And seems like they will be achieving their budget numbers this year. And that is fantastic, I must say. Whereas the rest of the world, we definitely have challenges and we have to get our act together. And we do the same situation with stop starts coming from Southeast Asia, as well as from Japan and South Korea as well. So we have mixed signals, but overall, I must say, what's more important is what's the learning for us in all this, and what's that we have to do going forward new. I think we look forward to the new normal, as people call.
Right. I think, yes, that's right, Harsha. There's so much of unpredictability all over. Harsha, one of the impacts of COVID also has been the supply chain disruptions. Now, India, we are talking about vocal for local. We want to build up the domestic industry. India, especially when we talk about Schaeffler in India, Harsha, you have significant exposure also in the automotive industry. And here India is quite dependent on China. Almost 28% of the imports of auto components come from China. But overall, Harsha, my question to you is it possible for us in India to mitigate this supply chain risks what we are facing? And what would be your advice to the companies, Harsha?
Okay. Let me start by talking about the first point, what you mentioned, vocal for local.
Right.
While the slogan vocal for local is to support the local industries and reduce imports,
right.
I believe it will be challenging in the near term to do the same, to immediately switch from sourcing from China to India would in the near term be a big challenge for many organizations. The auto industry, as you rightly mentioned, sources a lot from China, and to switch to a local source with the same cost structure in mind would be expecting a lot in the short term. My view is that there may be a gradual shift that we may see happening, but not an immediate one. Right. While the vocal for local is more, I believe, is more a call, a slogan, but I still see that some of the steps which the government of India has taken, and one, if I may bring to the surface here, is the government's initiative which they announced on the 6th of June, the Atmanirbhar, or India being self-reliant, which has very clearly spelled out the focus sectors as well as the fund allocations which the government is committed to make to make that happen in a very structured way. And to me, that seems more realistic from a midterm and a long-term perspective.
Okay.
Clearly, the focus of this Atmanirbhar initiative, which the government is driving, particularly focusing on the agriculture sector, the migrant workers engagement, which obviously points to the infrastructure industry and construction industry, and focus on special industrial sectors like mining, space, minerals, energy, defense, and civil aviation MRO. And this is the first time I'm seeing the government come out with a very clear mandate on what sectors must be focused upon going forward with clear budgetary allocations to make India more and more self-reliant. To me, I think the Atmanirbhar campaign has a lot more to offer going forward than the vocal for local is more jog. So from a Schaeffler perspective, I believe that the Atmanirbhar campaign opens up a lot of opportunities for a lot of players, including Schaeffler.
Right. If I may ask, Harsha, what is the level of localization at Schaeffler? You must be quite, I think, there must be, the localization content must be quite high at Schaeffler.
Yes, good question, Rajesh. I think we are in a little better off situation when compared to many of the other manufacturers in the country. Our dependence on sourcing from China, if I were to put a number to it, we are about 11% of our total purchasing volume is coming from China. So as you can see, it's not a very big dependency on China. We have been consistently on a serious localization drive within India, and particularly on the raw material and component side, which we have been diligently working on, and that has really helped us in the situation. We certainly have seen there are still a few more critical items in the 11% what I talk about, which we have been importing, which we continue to import from China. So surely, after experiencing what India went through post the India-China conflict situation, we have started to take measures to have an alternate sourcing capabilities for those critical items as well.
Okay. Okay. Harsha, you mentioned about the new normal, and we know due to COVID also the workplaces changes, the work style has changed. Also, we have the situation of migrant labor and perhaps leading to shortage of labor. For example, they say in automotive industry there is a shortage of labor. Do you feel all this would in a way give a push or a boost for companies looking at automation or increasing their level of automation in the factories?
Certainly, Rajesh, any crisis leaves behind it a wake, and a wake always creates, disturbs the normalcy that was there, that was prevalent. And so things now take a different shape and settle down again. So like any crisis, this crisis too has kind of pushed a lot of organizations into this wake. Now, as businesses emerge from this pandemic, automation technologies obviously will get more focus, and a lot of repetitive human jobs would certainly begin to get replaced, because leaving organizations the opportunity, look at it this way, this is also an opportunity which gives the organizations to raise the capability of the employees higher up in the value chain. Right. And move them more towards more critical roles rather than repetitive work. Right. I believe technology will always end up creating more jobs. Maybe it's a different kind of a job, but it will definitely end up creating more jobs. While some of the more repetitive jobs, as I said, they get automated. Well, new work models will emerge. and that certainly will create new work opportunities going forward.
Right.
So, where we are living in an age where pace accelerates very fast, and the pace of change is going to be very, very fast. So I would say one has to adapt a mindset of continuously evolving, adapting, and learning new things. And coming to the point which you made about whether robots and cobots would become a part of the manufacturing setup as a new normal, well, let me put it this way: not that robots need a virus crisis to market them.
Right.
Uh, if one were to look at some of the data in the past decade or so, the affordability of robots has gone up, which means the cost of the robots have definitely come down as such.
Right.
So if I were to quote the International Federation of Robotics, which is an industry body headquartered in Frankfurt, Germany,
Right.
and if you were to look at their research reports, between 2005 to 2008, the average number of industrial robots that was sold annually were about 1.1 million, 1.2 million robots. But then, of course, if you see in the last up to 2018, I guess it's about 4.5 million robots have been sold. But what we see would happen next going forward is an acceleration in the adoption rate of robots in the manufacturing area. Just between the year 2020 and 2022, in 2 years, it is estimated that the world would add close to 2 to 2.5 million robots more. Now, that's a big substantial jump within a short period of time. Surely there are a number of startups which have started to come into operations trying to bring out their versions of the robot. Yes, they are here to stay. Yes, the adoption rate would be a little more faster than what it was. And thanks to COVID, that is enabling it. And as industries resume production with the truncated workforce, manufacturers are looking for solutions, to ensure that there is no loss of efficiency. And so I can see that even MSMEs are able to now afford the low end of cobos and robos. So given that the machines sizes have come down, they have become a lot more maintenance free, and they have become a lot more affordable.
Right, right. And I think adding to the what you said, Harsha, is also India at the moment, the robo density in India, we have only 4 robots per 10,000 people workforce. So we have a lot of potential to grow in the number of
Potential.
potential to grow, and also
Yeah,
application of
true.
robots in the Indian industry. So I think that way there is a lot of potential, and as you correctly say, it's not just the COVID, but I think it's perhaps the way we go ahead with manufacturing. Yeah.
That's right.
Harsha, now due to COVID, uh, cash conservation is the new mantra. They say cash is king, and many companies like had budgeted certain expenses. There is a rethink on certain expenses now. So Harsha, considering Schaeffler in India, would you be going ahead with your R&D spendings, R&D projects despite of this COVID period? Harsha, I think I'm not able to hear you, Harsha. Harsha, you're not audible.
Hello?
Yeah,
Can you
Harsha.
hear?
Yes, yeah, I got you back. Yeah,
Yeah, I just got dropped out of the call. Yeah,
right.
sorry. I just listened to half of the question.
Right. The question was, Harsha, because of the the present, they say conserving cash is one of the important mantras now. The R&D spendings, what was envisaged or foreseen at Schaeffler, would you be going ahead with your R&D projects or any expansion, Harsha?
Yes, all our investment plans are on track as we had committed earlier as well.
Harsha, your video
We
is not on. I think I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Now it's
So as
better.
I was saying, so all our expansion plans are on because a lot of investments was already done in the year 2019. We put up a plant, additional hall for plants in Savli. And so we will be continuing with the investments that have been there in the pipeline. Of course, what we will do is we will time them and also reprioritize them going forward. So on the manufacturing side, we have made investments and with a very long-term strategic view, and those will continue.
Right.
And we continue to invest going forward in line with our strategy, what we have done. Coming to some of the R&D spend and the projects, yes, we will definitely be prudent in our spending, looking at the changes on in the landscape, the market landscape, and accordingly we will reprioritize as well as we will kind of be prudent and cautious in our investments wherever the need necessity arises. But we will continue to definitely invest going.
Ah, that's very encouraging, Harsha. Harsha, the pandemic also has thrown a lot of challenges for leaders. New leadership skills, developing resilience. So I wanted to ask you, Harsha, what would be your 2 or 3 tips from your side you would like to give to the CEOs of the German companies in India? How can leaders in this period of crisis come out best under the stress they are in presently?
Yeah. Like in any crisis, Rajesh, this crisis also warranted a kind of a three-step approach to handle. First was to protect, second was to recover, and third was to retool for the new tomorrow that would come. And I strongly believe that the senior management has a substantial responsibility, and this is an added responsibility that weighs down on the shoulders of the senior leadership to consider these three phases concurrently and accordingly allocate resource and work within this. Within these three, broad framework, the first rule I believe is the leadership has to be highly resilient. They have to be resilient to take on specific steps to demonstrate these qualities, to manage the crisis, blunt the impact, as well as to help the organization emerge stronger post the crisis. Now, with the right approach, this crisis actually can become an opportunity to move forward and create even more value and to make a positive impact, not just on the organization, but on the society around you. Hence, in line with the three steps, what I mentioned earlier, it is imperative that the leadership team practices and demonstrates three abilities, I believe, in line with the three steps to handle the crisis. And in my view, the first one would be empathy and sensitivity. This is the time, these are the qualities that are required to be very ably demonstrated, especially when you're recovering a situation during the crisis. The second would be resilience. Resilience is a very important aspect of crisis. How fast can you bounce back? And my definition of resilience, I would like to tell you a little bit, but let me complete the 3 points first. And the third, I would say, is agility. Post recovery, every organization is pushed to be agile. Coming to the first one, empathy and sensitivity towards the unprecedented and unforeseen challenges that your team actually faces. And it is important in this kind of a situation to be one among them and not be one of them. And that's one of the changes, mental recalibration that should be demonstrated by the leadership. And more so because this is in a virtual scenario that you are supposed to manage the crisis. Normal crisis situations, you are there face to face, you are able to inspire others being in front of them. But this is very different. You are supposed to inspire them virtually, sitting behind your computer or a laptop. And this is definitely new challenge for the leaders. So as leaders, we have to discover, how do I inspire my team? Uh, so one of the things, I always keep telling my team is that, we must learn the art of conveying a smile through the mask. Because the smile is a big enabler, and that's missing today because it's hidden behind a mask. So can you smile with your eyes and with your words is what I talk to my team, and I tell them that we must try to smile with our eyes and through our words, because the person who's communicating with you cannot see your smile anymore. So these are new challenges even for behavior, and very, very interesting. But the smile has become so important today that we have to pay attention to, how do I smile with my eyes and words? And it is all it is also times like this that leaders, organization has to have, show leadership who are very resilient in the face of such dramatic uncertainties. I strongly believe that leaders should seize the opportunity to energize their teams by imagining a very successful future and embracing trust as a catalyst. This is the time when trust bonds people together, and in my view, that's something I realized, that yes, build the trust, and that's going to hold the team together, keep the morale, and make the team more resilient as an organization. One individual being resilient is not enough in a crisis. Yeah. Going forward, the ability to embed rapid and nimble decision making, I think, is one of the other qualities I would say is important post recovery, because the landscape is so uncertain. Every day something new is getting thrown at you, and I strongly believe being very agile, both in our decision making, in our action, and agility in the mind will be equally important through the crisis when we move into the so-called new normal, whatever it is. Yes, managing in this new and unfamiliar environment demands more from the leaders in any organization. So, lot to learn here. Flexibility is another thing that is definitely going to be tested. Agility is one part. How, as a team, you can be very agile and flexible enough. So, agility is how fast you can act. Flexibility is how much you can act. So, I guess both would be tested, and I would say we must be prepared for this. So,
Right.
in a way, this is also the time where empowerment builds a lot of trust. And, the normal tendency for a leader is to take control of things in a crisis. And that actually would be counterproductive, because I strongly believe by doing so, you create more anxiety in the team, because then for everything, the team has to look up to you.
Right.
Uh, Actually, in a crisis, you need to let go a lot,
Right.
trust your team, empower them, and thereby, you make them more effective. And, if I have to simply put, you can still be there on the deck watching them steer the ship. But you keep a watch on the sail, occasional watch on the sail. What's happening to the sail? Where is the ship going to go? That way, I think you will have a very powerful team running the organization for you.
Right. I think, thank you, Harsha. I think very interesting points, and especially the point on empowerment. I think in this period of crisis, it's very essential that one builds the next line also for the people who can then, especially in large organizations, who can interact also with people further down the line. So thank you very much for these tips, I
Yeah.
think. And I specifically noted your 3 points, what you mentioned: protect, recover, and retune. I think that's also so true in this present circumstances. My last question, Harsha, to you is now we're talking about the
By
recovery.
the way,
Yeah.
Rajesh, the protect, recover, and retool. Well, I learned this from Dharmesh Arora before he, we were on a call and he was saying, and it was a nice learning for me, and I just built on it.
Okay, right. Uh, Harsha, there's a lot of talk of the recovery, how India would recover from this crisis. People have used various alphabets, V-shaped, W-shaped, L-shaped, U-shaped. I think now many predictions are proving to be wrong as we go forward. In many cases, lockdown has been extended. My question to you would be, Harsha, when do you see, to be very realistic, when do you see actually a sort of a rebounds happening in the Indian economy, Indian industry? Did you get me, Harsha? Yeah,
Okay, tough
yeah,
question.
yeah.
It's a tough one, Rajesh. Well, you talked about what shapes of recovery we will be seeing. Well, that's time is going to tell us,
Right,
and we believe it is not going to be like one shoe fits all
right.
recovery, like it happened in the previous crisis, where the entire economy went down and then the entire economy came back way back in the 2008 and 9. This time, what you will see is certain specific sectors taking different shapes of recovery, and that too at certain specific time points. They are not going to be together as well. So, and these time points would be very different between each other, and that poses very interesting challenges as well. So, well, I have been going through a lot of reports trying to understand what would happen. Is there a crystal ball I can graze and tell? Well, let me tell you, it's a very difficult challenge, but I can share with some of the reports I have gone through, and some based on what we hear from customers, and some based on our own assessment and feel. And well, I will stay focused on what is going to happen in India because that's relevant
Right.
to Schaeffler India. And I believe that some sectors definitely will have a much earlier recovery. And we have already seen it. For example, the agri and farm equipments, we have seen a
Right.
tremendous recovery, and the demand is much better than the July of last year. I find the production demand is much better. So one of the sectors very positively recovered and go flying high. Some other sectors could be the two-wheelers. We anticipate that they are going to bounce back very soon. And now that they've all started their production, so it's a question of time we will come to know. We believe the wind also should be able to come back, but then the recovery would be to get back to pre-COVID days, the numbers would take a little while. I would say another 8 to 10 months, but then it's definitely on the upswing, so to say. Although the domestic consumption for wind equipments in India, as you know, is still missing. But I guess the export market for the wind equipment manufacturer is definitely there. And that I expect would in the mid and long term would begin definitely to recover and move up. Some of the sectors where I believe it's going to take a little longer would be the industrial automation and power transmission sectors, fundamentally because they ride a lot on the auto sector. And the auto sector is one of the sectors which we believe is going to take a little more time to get back to those great heydays that they were.
Right.
I'm talking about the first half of 2019. To get back to those times, I think it will take a little more time. But we are seeing in the month of July very ambitious production numbers that are being talked about. And that brings in a lot of optimism. And I hope that this continues to build on and grow this way. So, to me, nutshell put, yes, short term, we see recovery in a couple of sectors. Mid-term to long term, definitely there is going to be a recovery. Some sectors would take a little longer. I anticipate the automotive would take a little longer to recover. And hence, a few sectors which are dependent on the automotive would take a little longer.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Harsha, for these feedback and for your thoughtful insights also, Harsha. Pleasure having you at our VDMA CEO's leadership series, Harsha, and wishing you, Chef and Chefler India, all the very best as we go ahead and hopefully as India comes out of this lockdown phase and as we reboot the economy. All the very best to you and the team, Harsha.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajesh. And it's always a pleasure to come back to events like this, which you run so diligently. It's very nice. Thank you and
So
stay
thank you
safe.
for all your support also, Harsha. Thank you. Goodbye. Take care. Right.
Goodbye.